Labdien!
Hello. We have full audience, but if you want to join, we will find a place for you. If necessary, we do have additional chairs, most probably taking into account the topic of our discussion, namely the culture in my backyard. The most cultured people will take part in this event. People for whom culture is the main dish for breakfast, dinner, and lunch, and lunch and dinner. Culture makes us human and actually makes a difference between us and our little brothers. If a person is cultured, then probably he or she is a bit above the others. But all of that we will find out during this discussion. Because culture is not just a culture, but the culture is in my backyard. My name is Alexis Andalāce, the artist of visual art and performance, will take part in our discussion. Miska Abaronin, singer, tenor, producer, and event manager, will take part. Also, Lelde Kristiāna Vozņesenska, programs Schoolbag of Latvia's Bureau of Latvia's Centenary, as well as Ieva Niedre, culture producer, and remotely Asa Meyer, senior advisor of Norwegian Council of Norway, working with EZ Grounds in the Department of International Affairs. Will join us remotely, Ase, as I said, Asa Meyer, and our discussion is also live streamed through LMT in Latvian. And if you want to find it in discussion in English, then you can find it EEZ Norway Grants webpage, as well as remotely through a LAMP talk show. You can follow this discussion remotely. We have our guests, participants here, but we invite everyone to talk. I will give you the floor when we will listen to your points of view, in order not to have only a monologue, but a dialogue. But I have gathered here the most knowledgeable people, knowledgeable on culture here on stage, but it is important nowadays to have a feedback with the society, because maybe we have found out something in studies, but the society is not at all interested in our studies. So in order to have a fruitful discussion, it is important to talk and to listen. If we tackle the topic of today, which I remind you is culture comes into my backyard, then I have to say that this period in our life, now connected with pandemics, the first thing that comes into mind and the first thing that was limited for people, they couldn't gather, and mainly people who work in culture area felt that, because theaters, operas, halls, exhibitions were closed. If there is no culture, we stop developing. And people tried to find different approaches, solutions, how not to be stuck for us, and how to bring this light of culture to people in order for them to develop. So let us start with the first step, namely what has changed in the area of culture in connection with pandemics. So what changes? Culture has underwent, or culture that existed until March 1919, whether the culture is the same, with the same activities, same mission, whether the culture remains the same. What has changed? Mix. I will be the icebreaker in this event, and I will speak the first. What has changed? Everything has changed. And even now, although seemingly we are back to normal, we are face to face, but at the same time, we do not have the same culture as it was before, and most probably it will not return to the full extent so quickly. This is what I believe. I am a singer. I am singing to the audience, and until now, even today, most of the events are either cancelled or postponed, because this interim period when we have people vaccinated, non-vaccinated, it works, but not entirely. Especially in smaller places, smaller municipalities, the attitude is very different, and it varies from place to place. In July, for example, I had an event where a concert was foreseen, and a week before that, municipality called me and said, unfortunately, we will postpone the event because we do not want to divide our society into vaccinated and non-vaccinated people. And what I see from my fellow artists, what is happening. The events are of smaller scale, they are less. And for those artists who are like me, for them the intensity of work has diminished by 80%, which is a lot. Eva, yes, I can agree to those negative trends. Everyone feels them, everyone sees them, those who are involved and even those who are not involved in culture. I wanted to stress, we are talking about negative things always, but it is worth looking at positive things, which will be brought by these things. And it will be brought to the whole world. And answering to your question, Lampa is an outstanding example to those things. For example, like 3 years ago in this festival, it would be quite strange if our Norwegian colleague sits somewhere behind us on the screen, and we are so decentralized because usually we saw stages next to each other, many people in the big crowd. Now we see decentralization, new technologies, and I evaluate live contact. I work with theater art, and it is very necessary to have in close contact with your viewer. And I hope that digital events will not take over face-to-face meetings, but hybrid things are not so bad. When we can talk all together like this, and the main thing is this decentralization. And it is valid for this type of events, like Lampa, being decentralized throughout Cēsis, not only in the park of the palace, but also to future festivals and events, which is not bad. And it's not bad that we live on and accustom many bigger territories, territories that were not used before. And it corresponds closely to the title of today, Culture in My Backyard. Anda, how about you directly? You as an artist, for you it is important to have face-to-face meetings, but during the pandemic time it was not possible. What in your daily work and professional work has changed? And what is different from what it was before? First of all, I wanted to mention what has changed. Today we evaluate the presence that we can meet face to face, and it was so self-evident then, and now those are special circumstances. This is a festivity, and we feel the anxiety that we might lose it again. That's why we cherish those moments so much. Today I'm going to stand in front of you not as an artist, but as Sanssouci curator, Sanssouci program curator. I'm going to tell you about this program. This is a program working with less favored groups, like, for example, people living in hospital or health care centers. For those people, culture was something inaccessible before the pandemics and even during pandemics. But together with professional artists, we found out that a lot of things are possible and new methods of communication were thought of. In some cases during this time, we had individual conversations, long telephone conversations, which would not have happened before if the previous times were ongoing. So we got acquainted with so many people closer, and now we can meet again. They continue cooperation with us, but also during this time we had negative experience when people with some psychological impediments, problems, they found this remote communication too difficult to cope with. So unfortunately, with some people, we couldn't continue working remotely, but not with all of them. What I wanted to say, some strategies and some art works would never have been created if we continued the old good practice. And that means that at the moment when I believe that everything is discovered, everything is tried, at that moment you can find out that you can create so much more. The one who, our great writer has written that the one who will be able to change will last forever. So we learn to adapt, we learn to be even more creative, how to bring our ideas to the audience. So pandemics make us to be even more creative, to look for ways, new ways, how to reach our audience. Yes, it is not entirely positive. It is very difficult. And when also when working with institutions, there were also awful experiences. Our daily communication was difficult, but during the pandemic, sometimes it was unbearable. And it is difficult to work in this remote format and to feel good all the time, because it is worrying. And even now, I, as an artist, I have a very tight schedule for autumn, because now there is a window, there is a hope. But in the back of my mind, there lures an idea that this last year's scenario might reappear. And it is very difficult to work so intensely and at the same time to worry so much. There are good things that I can take from it, and I try to look for good things, but all in all, this time is not easy. We will return to side effects of this period for culture and for artists. We will not stop these discussions about feelings of artists right now during pandemic restrictions. But if we look at the program Schoolbag, of Latvia, this program of enlightenment for our youth. This is indeed an enlightening program because people or pupil who live in big cities, for them theaters and operas and other events are very accessible, but young people living in regions, in remote areas, for them it is very difficult to go to concerts, to museums. And I do see this program, which was created thanks to Bureau of Latvia's centenary, I do see it as a program of enlightenment, that we are trying to bring culture from bigger cities to smaller cities to remote regions. And here, aspect of decentralization steps in. So do tell me, Leelde Christine, what has changed in this program in the last year, bringing culture to people in remote areas? Thank you. This is a very broad question. The answer could be very vague. But this program, Schoolbag of Latvia, has seized its third year. And there has been very many challenges for adaptation, for acquiring new experience. For example, mobile museums, mobile tours were something new. For example, contemporary dance or museum. It was a surprise how it can be brought to school. Previously, we thought that this is just something like two actors or a pianist playing in the main hall of the school, but now it has changed completely. I would describe it as more positive than negative. Of course, it was difficult. And difficult to think how are we going to spend the entire time behind screens. But overall, experience is positive because cultural experience, whatever form and shape it takes, is a good experience. And what we do with this experience, it's our responsibility. Speaking about regions, within the framework of the project, we are trying to offer the culture in present. But at the same time, it is important that the person, that a pupil can visit a theater or an opera remotely, because we understand that not only first graders, but also fifth graders, they enter theaters for the first time. They have this experience of placing their coat in the wardrobe and then waiting for 3 bells to ring before the performance. And this experience is quite close to real experience. Artists are paying a great deal of effort to make it as real as possible, be it an art gallery or an art class or a concert or a theater. And this is thanks to creative thinking of artists as well as development of creative thinking of pupil. Because it's not a one-way street. It's not that only we will listen or will look at something, but it's also a reflection how pupils are creating their own discussions, theaters, shadow theaters, dance performances. I don't think that only because of the fact that the culture goes to the region, it loses quality. No, not at all. It is the same, but maybe takes a different form and shape, and it adapts a bit, but not the content and the essence, but the form. Thank you very much. I will stand up in order not to sit with my back to Ase. Ase, a question to you. How Norway, during the time of pandemics, how the pandemics dealt with or co-lived with culture and culture with pandemics. Has something changed? And if yes, what? You just heard the experience of Latvia, but we are very interested in events taking place in Norway.
Yes. Hello, and first of all, thanks for being invited to this debate and panel. I really wish I could be with you physically, but we have strict travel policies in my workplace for the moment, so I just had to cancel. And although technology is great for the moment, it's not the same as being there together with people physically. For sure, and this is the most important. In fact, I am now in a small town in Norway called Arendal, and they do have almost the same kind of festival as Lampa. It's a festival of debates, discussions with politicians, and yesterday I attended a debate about cultural policy in the future, and also another one really interesting with the title, "What is worse for the culture in the future, the pandemics or the digital distribution of culture?" It was a really interesting discussion about how will cultural life look like in 2022, 23, 24. Because for the moment in Norway, like in every country in the world, we have mostly been distributing all kinds of culture and art through digital systems, which is not the same, but it gives a possibility. So I think it's really important to have discussions about the future, as when we wish to continue with the foremost digital cultural experiences, or do people want to come back to the venues? And in fact, the Art Council in Norway just had a survey asking people, it was in June, will you come back to the theaters, to the cinemas, to the opera, to exhibition halls, or do you prefer to stay with your cultural experience in your own backyard or in your own dining room or whatever? And most, I think 95% were positive about coming back to the venues. But at the same time, we have also seen, because technology has been there for years now, but not explored, and this explosion of the digital possibilities with the technology we have today in the world. Just me being on screen participating in your debate, it was like science fiction only 1.5 years ago. But it's not the same, but it gives also, as some of you mentioned, I think for audience, or maybe less favored people, low-income families, etc., who never had access to cultural experiences or events because it's too expensive. So in that case, it's maybe more democratic in the future to also have a distribution of culture, both digitally and also physically. Because I think when it comes to low-income families, like in Norway, going to the cinema, it's almost 80 euros for a family of 5 going to the cinemas, which is a lot of money. And now you can have a possibility to watch movies and even theater plays, etc., via digital platforms. But at the how to reach out to this less favored audience, because I think it's also about habits. Because if you're growing up in a family where none of your parents or families or neighbors are kind of used to go to the cinema or to go to the theater or whatever, then you don't really do it yourself. And here I think it's so great with this cultural Schoolbag. And also we have the same in Norway, called the cultural rucksack, and we had it for more than 15 years now, and it's a national initiative, and it's now also by law. It was adopted by the parliament a few years ago in a white paper to the parliament that all school kids should have or has to have access to culture in the school time, because it gives also for the future a very good, call it democratic platform to build on, because I think culture is also experience adding value to life, but also knowledge. And if you don't know anything about this cultural world, I would say, then you have also less maybe understanding for democratic processes, values, also freedom of speech, getting used to diversity of expression and all this, which is, I think, really important in the future. So we have very interesting discussions in Norway for the moment about how will the cultural field look like, not next year, but like in 22, 23, even 10 years ahead of us. And how much will be totally changed. What has been also, because there have been many surveys and statistics now, and what we discussed yesterday is also many artists have had a big loss in income the last 15 or 18 months, really big loss in income. Very few artists in the world and in Norway, and I guess the same in Latvia, a few have in fact increased their income. But what we see through surveys and statistics for the moment, it's fewer artists earning more. Same as we see through the digital platforms like Netflix and HBO, Disney, you see few owners get the big piece of the cake. And you will see many artists in all fields of cultural and artistic expression maybe will have even less income than before. And this is where the cultural policy debate is right now. But we have also had, of course, good compensations and stimulation possibilities during the last 18 months. But this is all this ad hoc help in a way, ad hoc surviving from month to month. But for the future, it will be interesting to see if this has even changed the structures of the calls. How should the programs or the calls for artists, for film production be shaped in the future? But we are really happy also in the EA grant section of the Arts Council in Norway, international unit, to see this great call that the Ministry of Culture and Finance of the EA have shaped this call to reach out to the young audience and kids, school kids. And we think, and I think personally as well, that the audience of the future is the kids. And I think how we train, to put it that way, young people to consume culture right now will be the trends of the future. And I think this program with the cultural Schoolbag is really essential for also democratic access to culture for all kinds of people living in the country. And before I come back with more points, I will just give you a personal experience, because I just started in my position in the Arts Council in March. Before this, I was the director of 3 big film festivals in Oslo. Just in the middle of the pandemic, when it started, we had planned for the opening of a big festival, which had to be cancelled. Then in November last year, we had this big festival called Oslo Films from the South Festival. And we thought we were lucky to have a kind of open cinemas in November. And everything was planned for screening the films in the cinema venues. But in September, I had a bad stomach feeling. So we got to get in touch with, in fact, a company in New Zealand called Shift 33. They are, for the moment, the biggest distributors of programs for digital film festivals. So we had this like in the backseat. In the last minute, we had to change, throw ourselves around, and we had the first full-time digital film festival in Norway. What we experienced as really positive was that we reached out to a total new audience all over Norway. And so we had great TV and radio coverage of this festival, because for the first time, people in Northern Norway, Western, could really watch our movies. But of course, we had less income because many people think that it's really expensive to pay, let's say, €3 or €4 for a cinema ticket when they can have full access to Netflix program for €10 per month. So this we also discussed in the future. It's not really, we couldn't earn enough money with these digital film festivals. And I think also for like singers, artists, all kind of cultural expressions, the digital ways now are great to reach out, to reach new and broad audience, but there has to be new models also for income if we are to continue with this digital transmission of cultural expressions. I think also that we are human beings and we will need to meet up and see each other and to sit side by side and get this warm feeling of sharing with each other. But the young generation, they are more used than I am 50 plus. I am too old to fully explore the digital world the way the young people do it. They used to be sitting alone watching films or the visuals, gamings, and I'm quite sure how easy it will be to get them out into the cultural venues again. Well, it was a long speech. I will come back to you later on, and please just also ask questions and inputs to what I've said. It was a whole range of things.
Jā, paldies, Asa, ļoti tāds...
Thank you very much, Asa. A content-wise, informative answer to my question. I would like also to brood upon several aspects that Asya already mentioned. Mobility of culture, namely how much culture becomes mobile and whether it goes to its viewers. Mikus, you have experience with Schoolbag, culture bag. Maybe you can share your experience. Yes, indeed. Today is 2021. Last year in autumn, where we could again visit our listeners, viewers, as Anda mentioned, that now in autumn we are trying to manage everything because everything can be closed again. And then last year we did quite the same. And I work with the Schoolbag project already for 3 years. And speaking about what we did, we created professional programs with an aim to be entertaining and educating. And my philosophy behind that is to create a content with a view of thinking what was boring for me when I was little. In my case, that was music. And we tried to make everything interesting and simple. And the artists were trying to demonstrate this. And one program that we did, development of dance and music, where we started with Middle Ages, then Baroque, Renaissance, and we came up with examples. We were accompanied by dancers, also the opera, and this dancer who was very talented. She was dancing in full outfit of ballerina. Very often there were no stage. We used corridors as stages. Stages were even smaller than this one, and we adapted. And as Lelde already said, we were trying not to think that we are performing in a school of 20 pupils. We are artists, and we are doing our best and giving those 20 kids our best experience. And it was a fantastic experience, especially in a very remote area. When we asked whether you have visited opera, like 3 of them. How many of you have visited capital city Riga? Again, a couple of them. So for those people, they could not afford to go to an opera. So we thought of, we talked about opera. We came up with an example, or I sang, and then we are saying this is a nutcracker, and then comes out a ballerina and she dances nutcracker. So this was a very interactive performance. We involve everyone. We use the slides, and we are very mobile. We are about 3. We inform as many people as possible. So for us, it is financially feasible, and we do that. And very often our first concert starts in Krāslava at 8 in the morning. We go the previous night, stay in a hotel, and show our performance. I like going around. I have been in about 100 mobile concerts in schools. And children, they like it. They find it very interesting, something unseen. It also depends on the content. I would like to supplement. Speaking about mobility, we will never be able to bring to the local culture center a school, a national ballet or an opera. But that's not our goal. That's not what we should do. But in bigger centers, theater can do their performances fully. But this program is a platform not only for children, but also for artists. But through the program, this child can listen to classical music or see a ballerina in a full outfit, not without going to our opera house. But next time, when this child is going to plan the next cultural event, they could suggest to their parents or teachers, let's go to Riga Opera House because I found it interesting. It's not something boring, something very remote or far away. It is not just economic discrepancies that we are trying to eliminate. Those are not poor families. Those are not left aside or marginal families. This is meant also for people, for families who could have afforded it, but this was not their value. And for the first time, those children were shown an opera or a ballet. This is for all types of social groups, not just socially excluded, marginalized groups. For example, we have a vocational student who is writing to us that I was watching a theater performance until 1 o'clock at night, or I watched a ballet until late at night. So we hope that one day they will be willing to spend money on real theater, real opera. Thank you, everyone who works on this program and with this program. This program is very valuable for Latvia, for its young people, for children. And it is really admirable how you adapted to COVID situation and how you could adapt to digital environment. And we have several projects for Schoolbag program. And just before COVID restrictions started, we placed two performances in Schoolbag. One was dance performance, and the other one was a theater. And we encountered the following, that remote smaller schools had problems of acquiring even digital performances. because if they choose to buy this performance, they couldn't gather enough money. And we digitalized these performances, and there was a trend that from small schools there were applications for tickets, and I saw who were buying the tickets for those digital performances. Because finally they could collect money. They didn't have to go to bigger centers. So we have to keep it for the future as well. Of course, without mainly offering everything digitally, because they don't want to go anywhere and spend money on traveling expenses. But for some schools, it is the only possibility to see something remotely. And speaking about the significance of the program, if a person from a small age is used to looking at cultural performances, then in the future we will have less and less questions about accessibility and understanding of contemporary art, of someone saying this is something not for me, this is something for people living in Riga. Also, we had, for example, recently misunderstandings with a piece of art of artist Brecht, of his mural, which was misunderstood, and this mural was placed on a wall in Riga. We will have less and less misunderstandings like that. I also wanted to share my experience with contemporary art with my creative workshop. I have possibility to visit schools, and my program is connected with contemporary drawing and performance and dance. And when I was offered to come up with a digital project, I said no, but I take part in the project of drawing theater when which was created like 15 years ago. And there we have this experience within the framework of 2 projects, and I'm a co-author. And the format is the following. We are very mobile. I don't know how many times we have been in different places, in smaller cities, in towns and villages, in culture centers. Those are theater performances for children, but the format is very mobile, and throughout lockdown month, we cease to offer our performances. But I was very interested in the following topic: how to interest people, young people, in those performances, or take part in a project. Because Sanssouci experience this year showed me that, for example, institutions and community people with whom we regularly meet do want to continue cooperation, but this summer, not last summer so much, but this summer, we are, I think, losing young people. They are simply disappearing from our audiences, especially in summer when they are not connected directly with a certain educational establishment. There are separate cases, but if we compare with last year, maybe it's coincidence, but I think we are losing young people. And sometimes very interesting projects where they have a possibility to work in, where I think they would be interested in, and my experience shows that they would be interested, and all of a sudden they are not interested. Their parents are interested, their relatives are interested, and local community, local adults are coming, but young people for whom the project was meant has disappeared. And as their relatives are saying that they are spending time in their telephones, they are there so deeply that they cannot be gotten out of it. And and I have this feeling of helplessness. I have no means to solve that, although we had a beautiful experience in Valmiera Theatre Festival, where there were many young people participating. But in Sanssouci project, my experience was rather helpless when I've had the feeling that I've lost them, young people. Maybe it is because, and I have worked with contemporary dance projects where we had problems in spring to bring people together for the project, which wouldn't have been problem before, but we understood why. It was a psychological issue, as you've said. They are all into digital environment and in their phones. And this is a tradition that was terminated, and it is difficult to get back. Young people are maybe lonely or maybe afraid. That is a psychological issue. They are afraid to go back to normal and go back to society, meet them. Very often young people learn about projects during their activities, but now there are no more common activities. And they are not informing each other. So we have lost this possibility of communication. So now, for example, a teacher sends information that there is such and such project, but they do not want to take part. It is good, actually, how digitalization from one side is a positive experience, and at the same time we are losing something. I would like to go forward, speaking about digitalization and culture, and maybe step forward, not only Schoolbag project, but let's have a look at bigger projects and cultural issues. Namely, I will try to provoke you, because discussions are very interesting. It is clear that anyways, those people who have experience with theater, with opera, concerts, we do know that before going to an event, we perform certain rituals. We prepare ourselves, we shave or put on a dress, best dress. We prepare physically and mentally to go to an opera house or another theater in order to meet the culture, to meet something that we've longed for so long. But now when many performances, plays are digitalized, I come home from work, I put on my shorts or my sweatpants, I put fried potatoes in front of me, and I think of, okay, I'll have a look at the play. Research committee, young Riga theater. Maybe digitalization is taking away rituals and degrading culture experience. I think that culture is for a long time already not only something that we experience in our best dress. You can experience culture to the full extent in your boots or in pajamas, or with a soup bowl in front of you. It is bad. It's a pity if that's the only way how you can experience culture. But I know there were people who during restrictions created their own rituals, who dressed up to sit in front of a TV. Maybe they didn't put on high heels, but they prepared for this ritual. They came together and viewed an opera or a theater play. New rituals were created. With our British colleagues in Zoom, we celebrated Shakespeare's anniversary. And we had a black tie principle similar to face-to-face experience. But yes, partially you are right. I was missing this experience of putting on high heels and a dress and a makeup. But that is a dual experience. It somehow disarms many people, especially people for whom it's not a daily experience. For them, it might be scary to go to opera. They don't know what to wear. And maybe it is very disarming that the first experience can be gained at home, from the comfort of your home, and then you understand that this is something that I am interested in, and then I'll go to the venue place itself. I would like to add to what colleagues said. Going to the theater or to the opera is something, a tradition that is existing for tens of years or even hundreds of years. And no one is saying that we cannot create new experiences or new traditions. Much bigger challenge, and I'm not talking about schoolbag experience, but digital experiences maybe doesn't make me responsible. I can eat my potatoes in my pajamas, but I need a ketchup. And whilst I run to the fridge, I miss something. I miss 2 minutes of the performance, and I'm not going to rewind it. So that makes me think how to live with this feeling of less responsibility. I have similar experience. I believe that during digital time, when performances were digitalized and shown on the internet, I think that viewing is much more careless. Watching is careless. There are certain things that I can only enjoy when being present. I don't like watching it on TV, darkened hall, especially theater, stage. That is something that asks for a present. If you digitalize a play that is meant for face-to-face, but if you create something meant for digitalized environment, that is something else. But I believe that digital viewing of traditional play is kind of less serious. How many people can watch Wagner's opera digitally? It can be something sounding in the background, but not entirely. It will never be the same experience. But I would like to say another thing. I have fallen asleep in the theater, and maybe and I have missed 5 minutes of a theater. I'm inclined to think that I'm not the only one who falls asleep in an opera or in a theater. And how to cope with the idea that I've missed 5 minutes. And how about comparing the same with running to the fridge for a ketchup? I also miss some minutes. But you mentioned Wagner's opera. I have an example from real life. My mother, which is a fan of opera, during the pandemics, she watched all Wagner's opera, and she was not introduced with earphones, so her neighbors came knocking at the door, saying that we do like Wagner's opera, but not at 11 at night. So yes, we talk about it from different perspectives. There are positive and negative experiences. Viewers and the people present, you may have and ask your questions or come up with your observations. But let's continue our discussion. And we already mentioned the following, that culture teaches us values. We start at an early age at school and go on. For culture, we need to prepare, to learn, to understand. It is not just so simple. Why I started talking about those values and that culture comes into our backyard. We do see very well that during the last weeks, one cultural object entered our backyard. Let us call our big city a backyard. We see one mural, and Christian Brechte, the artist, dedicated one mural to Gemma Skulme, and how much repercussion it had in the society. In social networks, there are so many comments or movements. People are talking about that. Everything is developing. So my question, whether the culture at one moment when I am not yet ready can enter my backyard, and what happens with me? How I perceive that. Let us develop this topic. The culture is there in my backyard, and I'm not prepared for that. I don't like it. I see something on the wall that is actually ugly or indecent, and I'm totally against it. So how to prepare for how to prepare ourselves to meet the culture in our backyard? Okay, I'm not going to talk about this piece of art, but about my experience, and not only about but other people, about the Sanssouci Festival and well-being residences of Sanssouci, and Daina Kruse mural in psychoneurological hospital, how it started 8 years ago in a small village. In the territory of a small village, first chamber music festival was organized. Now it has grown into a bigger festival with contemporary art elements, and the organizers understood that there are no locals. Listeners from Riga or from abroad are overwhelmed and they evaluated, but not locals. When starting to look around, we understood that in this small village or small town, Aknīste, there are many inhabitants who are also patients in the psychoneurological hospital. All tickets were offered. Discounted tickets were offered for locals, but they didn't come because it was something strange for them. And we started talking to them, and many processes were started. We gave tickets. When giving tickets to patients, it didn't work. But worked the following, when they were involved as volunteers to help as co-artists or organizers. They earned tickets, and they were there as not participants but as organizers. And at that moment, they started liking it. And then we extended it to other patients, to employees and staff of the hospital, to seniors, to pupils. Thus, those processes were extended. And together, when working together for preparation on organization of this event, and artists of contemporary performances were coming from all around the world. They were working in the center 8 hours a week, and they spend time with the local inhabitants. And now, as I said, already for 3-4 years, for example, last summer when Daiga Kruse worked with young people together for several weeks, drawing murals, decoration, when we drew on the exterior wall of the hospital, we encountered very positive emotions. We were locals. We were perceived as locals, and local children who were co-authors of this painting, one of the most outstanding mural paintings. So in this case, I am saying that the work performance or work shouldn't be done always together with locals, involving locals. But if it went through certain communication with Rigans, with Riga inhabitants, it might have been accepted better. Maybe because I have this experience, my own experience, I think this would have been better. We have similar experience, and I do agree to the necessity of co-creation, because we work with people in regions, and we create those contemporary theater performances. And since the Latvia's centenary and anniversary, together with my colleague Brigitte Strade, whom I see in the audience, we started this community process of creating contemporary theater performances. We worked with choreographs, also producers in local communities. But these artists have to be prepared working with locals, people who have not encountered contemporary art. If you are not prepared, then it might not be good, because this artist might look down at locals. I am the great artist and you don't understand it. So the key issue is for the performer, for the artist, for a producer to be prepared where he or she is going to explain and to create together, and to listen to the other party. And when creating these contemporary events, in my case, theater performances, you have to explain the process. It's not enough just to say stand on one leg and say that and that, because it's needed. People are interested. Why? Why do you think that I have to stand on one leg? And if people are explained the processes, they are co-authors, co-creators, and they understand. And at the end of the process, very often, people of different ages, even elder people, who have never been to contemporary theater performances, come and ask, where can I see it? Where can I see something similar? They want to look for codes and their imagination. If they are given the key or the first thread or the first taste of it. Speaking about this specific case, during the pandemics, people's mental health has been impacted. People have become not so, they are not tolerant. They are not tolerating anything. People have less to do, and so they comment on things that they would usually not comment. And I think this is something stupid, but I cannot agree to you. This situation was beforehand. with law on chastity, especially in schools, whether that was a movie or a fairy tale or a poem that created scandals where, according to the society, something inappropriate was taught at school, and it came to something absurd, namely a law on chastity. This has nothing to do with pandemics. I'm just talking about myself as an individual. I'm not trying to get involved in these things because it's not worth my attention. But I think you have to get involved. That's why I am sometimes laughing at myself. I am a social justice worker. You can never achieve anything. No, we can achieve different viewpoints. Sometimes I do see only one type of viewpoints, and then I try to comment something different, a different point of view, because very often my colleagues or friends, people are saying, "Oh, I'm not going to spend my time on these stupid people." Maybe this is where culture is stemming from, not only from one type mass opinion, but also from different opinions. When the person is alone, he's silently there, but if there is a mass, a majority, then the voice is louder, then people are more ready to express themselves. But contrary opinion, which can be harmful, alternative, explaining, might give another type of experience that which can teach you that okay, I can listen to you, I can listen to argumentation, but my argumentation is the following, which is in contrast to you. So in this case, in the case of Christians, maybe co-participation in this backyard was lacking. Maybe they should have involved locals in the process of creation of this mural. So there should be coexistence between many things. For artists, it's important to see eyes of viewers, also to hear the applause. And then we experience tears into artist's eye, because there we see this correlation between artist and audience. In digital era, this is missing. Are we losing something or not? How to ensure this codependency, how to compensate for that, how not to lose? I would like to comment it from the point of view of the program, Schoolbag. Maybe say there are some shortcomings, but it is interesting to listen to feedback from pupils, for example, from about concert lecture, Songs of Awakening. People have not experienced that time. They have heard of it, but this digital concert lecture allowed them to listen to the songs together, for example, with parents, with one's parents who experienced this time. The parents tell about their experience, and we can see the tears in the eyes. Maybe we do not see the tears in the eyes of an artist, but through this digital platform, they see the experience of parents, for example. The pupil, the child, has not experienced anything of the content. This positive feedback is more than negative. There are negative traces, but I think the positive ones are overwhelming. Speaking about digital lectures, these are not concerts only. When we create them with the thought that someone is watching. I do not hear the applause, any other feedback, but I give full emotions full emotions, believing that someone is out there. I give the text, I give my narrative as if listening to you back. This is not just a concert. This is a conversation with illusional viewer. But this is specially created. This is not a digitalized concert. You can watch just about everything on YouTube. Speaking about pros, not cons, it's good that I am, for example, watching something on my TV at home, concert lecture. And Mikos, you are talking to me through the screen, and most probably very individual and personal message is being given to the viewer. There will be always two sides of the coin. Thank you very much. Asya, you raised your hand. You probably have something to add. You heard our discussion. What is your experience, and what can you add to this discussion about your experience in Norway?
Firstly, I also want to say that being somewhere just digitally instead of physically gives a totally different kind of feeling. As for me, being here in my own summer house and you sitting there, and I feel I'm not as attached to the debate as if I'd been there. So this is something, watching something at home, cultural events, concerts, film, whatever, doesn't give the same feeling of being there live and watching. That's also, but coming back to this pro and cons and culture in the backyard, I remember in the beginning of the pandemic in Oslo, and in fact there was a kind of everyone, all backyard, my backyard, I live in the city center of Oslo. There were like people, musicians, artists coming around, giving small concerts in the backyards, and we were all hanging out of the window, and it was kind of romantic and a bit exciting in a way. And if you wanted to, you could give a little tip to the artist, and you felt really like being part of something together. Then after a few months of this pandemic, being isolated, there were not so many funny films on the internet anymore, or like sketches, or like concerts in the backyard. So I think culture coming to your backyard for like this in the pandemic is like an ad hoc event, because many artists I know, even my son-in-law, he's a professional musician, giving then concerts for free, just to cheer up everyone, as it was like in the middle of a war in a way. I felt it was going back to Second World War and singing with Vera Lynn somewhere. So I think coming back to this, to have a professional artistic life in a certain country, you need to if you want to have professional artists, they need to be paid as well. So I think in the future, and pros and cons, it all comes back to how to, during the pandemics, I said before, a few big companies within audiovisuals and also musicians in Norway, they have earned more money than before, but most have a big loss in their income. So if the future should continue to be digital as now when it comes to cultural events, we might see that there will be many artists losing all their income, and maybe people also expecting that all kind of culture should be for free, which is the pro side of this digital culture. So, for example, you, the man with the glasses, saying that you gave concerts on the internet, and it's kind of fun, but how to make money on these concerts, and how much are the audience willing to pay? And then coming back also to this cultural Schoolbag, and I think the quality of teaching kids, even showing them artistic expression they don't like, so they have to learn about the whole diversity of expressions. And they can also learn it's okay not to like anything, but they should learn about culture, quality culture, and professional artists. And I think it's great when the pandemic is maybe not totally gone, but more or less the societies are open again. Professional artists can travel to schools with these programs and give children really high quality cultures. And then maybe some of them will think it's boring, but maybe a few others will just love it and be given a possibility they never had before through their families or through their where they live in the country. In Norway also, we have many remote places far, far away from Oslo. And we always had this, or like not always, but for 15 or even 18 years. And it's been great for kids to learn about, they even have, it's now compulsory for schools to have this traveling artists visiting to their schools within theater, music, literature, contemporary art, film, whatever. I think, and again, this is coming back to how to build the audience for the future. The audience for like a small kind of a very narrow kind of artistic expression, or the audience for a more commercial concert or whatever. We need to build on the children. And I'm really worried, and we are in the Arts Council in Norway, and in a report, we are now doing a study or like a report for the Ministry of Culture, looking into how will the cultural life look like after the reopening of the society, and looking into, as I said, new kind of support program, because it's really important to make sure that all the freelancers and all the artists will have a sustainable life in the future. Because we cannot give concerts and whatever on the internet free anymore, I think. Even it's great that we reach out and find new audience. But I also think for myself, because let's say I had never been to a theater. All I did in my own sofa was to watch Netflix and TV series. How would I know that it was now, oh, it's the pandemic times, there are theater plays and digital platforms, great operas, a fantastic contemporary art exhibition digitally. How should I know if I didn't know about it beforehand? I would continue to lay down on my sofa watching American TV series, or maybe a Scandinavian TV series or whatever. So I think, again, it has to start with training a new audience and training kids and young people, a diverse group of people, low-income families, families without education. Their children should also be given the possibility to learn a little bit more. And also it gives a democratic feeling. And I think it's good for the class differences in the society as well, that we're given equal access, at least equal access to learn about it. And then there will be people that will never ever be interested in going to theater for the rest of their life, but at least they have the possibility to have a glimpse of something. But I think also to ensure through, for example, this program, Cultural Schoolbag, and through also this EA call now, ensuring professional artists to have a normal income doing their job, which is to be artists. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And so how should Ministry of Culture and EU and whatever, how much should there be a public support of art and culture and artists in different countries? I think it's really important to even increase the budgets in the future.
Yeah. Liels paldies, Ase, par šo viedokli.
Thank you very much, Asya, for your impetus. We are coming to the end of the discussion, and now I would like to talk not so much about cultural processes, but about you as artists. Asya already mentioned that during this time, when all kinds of digital cultural events are being created, not always artists are being remunerated. Often those things are free of charge, and then the issue is about the artist. What royalties, what income are they getting? The question is very simple. But from the other side, maybe it will be difficult to answer how long you as artists are ready to cope with this and still be artists. I can answer and I can reply with the following about these digital tools. People are not ready to pay for digital viewing because that's not it. I am not ready to pay for it. I am ready to pay for education, for educational content, for training courses, or for certain university courses. But the only thing what I'm doing as an artist, I am keeping my eyes and ears open to look for possibilities not to lose my professional development and to continue working what I like to do and what I am. I have said long ago, if I cannot earn money by my profession, I will reprofile. Many artists have changed and for a different profession and doing something quite not connected with art. It is good to receive benefits. It's good that we have had them, but it's never enough, and it's not good to live on benefits. Artists nowadays do have to look at all kinds of funds, EU funds and projects. It's not as simple as, okay, I am a singer, so call me and I will sing for you and you pay me. If you want to be a freelancer without any basic income, you have to look for all kinds of possibilities to earn. Many artists do have a main profession, be it an orchestra or chamber music orchestra or a teacher. But to be purely a freelance artist, it is very difficult, even if you are creative, to find a job, full-time job. This is what I'm doing, and I am not about to reprofile. Reprofile is the extreme measure that I could imagine in my profession, but in our country also artists were urged to do so, and Antra Vilnīte in her performance learned to be a tractor driver, and she made it as a performance. Showing others how she learned to drive a tractor. But we are doing it in the regions with all kinds of society groups. We need to do it in the theater with all kinds of age groups, and it is impossible to do it digitally because they have the joy of being together, of participating. They are not professionals, and I think they will not get involved digitally. What we started doing networking in regions that we used or previous networking, and we implemented all kinds of educational projects. I am not ready to pay for a digital content that at the beginning we thought of supporting colleagues, or it will overcome shortly, and we paid for it. Now we are no longer willing to pay for it, but we started offering media literacy projects. We're creating something new and introducing people to media literacy projects. That is one way. And one thing, as you mentioned, you are willing to pay for that. And the second option is audio solutions, audio guides, which goes hand in hand to culture in my backyard. You can explore your backyard. For example, in Agenskallns region, we have made 2 audio guides, one dedicated to wooden architecture and the other one to our local poet, Ojārs Vācietis. In both, we are cooperating with actors, also with musicians who take part in the musical recordings of the audio guide, and for that people are willing to pay. Also, musician Nīmanis and Zelinskis were involved. So there we can involve our colleagues and use their unique talent and create something that encloses the audience and allows people to walk around their backyard and at the same time pays for it. For me, it was really terrible that I have spent my entire day on Zoom, and then I am going to watch a theater performance on Zoom yet again. But now, together with my friends or by myself, I can walk around and listen to audio guide. But we are using now its full potential. And for example, the speaker asks me to do something there in the backyard. There is a feeling that I am a part of secret society. I am somehow secretly doing something. I am on a mission. It would have been good to be connected with geolocation when the audio guide is telling you, look up, and there's a next clue. We didn't have so much money to connect ourselves to geolocation, but we counted steps. We made people counting steps, 100 steps forward and then look up. Yes, I know we have friends and family members with whom we talk, how long we can tolerate all the restrictions. But what was interesting, people from Latvia travel around Latvia a great deal. And they visit remote areas, areas that they have never been to. Some people have never been to Latgale region. Some people have never been to Kurzeme, etc., etc. And within this year, we do see this wave of traveling locally. That means that we are trying to learn more about our backyard, more about country. I wanted to shortly add, without returning back to the previous, but adding these digital applications. This is just a new reality. Young people are using smartphones. This is inevitable. But what content they are watching, whether they are using it on YouTube or TikTok or watching a theater performance, this is an issue of content. So that means that digital things can be there and will continue existing, and it can serve as a means for earning. If we create a platform or an app that is very good and attractive for young people. There is a group of people, not very big, because the biggest part do want to return to face-to-face events, but there is a part of society which wants digital content. So how accessible is this content, audio content, if there is a part of society who will never go to a theater? They already know for certain that they will never go to a theater. We can reach them now. But free of charge content is accessible to everyone. Theater performance and Straum, and there is not an issue that there is nothing of good content. But who is going to pay for that? Mikus, when there was those events, theater events, those were good additions to real theaters, and they worked very good. You probably cannot acquire tickets, or those are too expensive, but then you can watch it online. But this was kind of an add-on to reality. Theater zip will disappear in 7 days. Maybe I want to watch a theater performance today. Do whatever you want. So this is the last minute. I wanted to return to the initial question, how we feel as artists and for how long we can endure. At the moment, we have a lot of work, a load of work, that I feel myself thinking that I wait for a lockdown when I will have an excuse for putting my feet up. But this is just a side effect. I'm sorry. And I hope that this will not be new normal when everything is happening in some month and then we face lockdown. This is not healthy. But my honest answer is that I do see my work until November, and then it would be good to stay at home. It's a side effect. This summer has been the most stressful summer ever. My colleagues all around will agree. There is a stress and chaos, and everyone tries to get something. There are projects, old, new ones, future projects, and you are somewhere in the middle of the project. So please, no lockdown. Let us disseminate projects throughout the year, and let's live a normal life. Thank you very much. And thank you, viewers and observers. Some applause to Amda, Mikus, Lelde, Ieva, and Ase. Thank you very much for your participation, for your point of view, and thank you for the culture developing all around us. Thank you very much.